Number 5 also does not have a line reference. It's a much more specific question, so maybe we might be tempted to skim for the answer, but we don't need to, because again, whenever we have a question without a line reference, just go to the next question first, see what's going on. In this case, again, we have evidence answer choices. We have line references to go to. The trouble I find with this one is that the question in number 5 is really very specific and hard to kind of understand. So I might want to dumb summary the question before I even go into those lines. Let me just make sure I understand what my task is here. It can reasonably be inferred from the passage that the main reason that the narrator considers Great Expectations to be the best gift he ever received is... Okay, this is the best part about dumb summaries. You don't need to make some sort of eloquent summary. Why book good? That's what I need to find out, right? Think like a caveman here. You don't need intense, eloquent grammar to turn a complicated question into a simple one, right? Give your brain the least amount of stuff it needs to get the job done. That's the point of a dumb summary. It's not eloquent, but it's effective. So why is the book good? Let's go to the lines, see what we can figure out. 38 to 40. Okay, so that's right here. Again, that's the middle of a sentence. That's weird. When left. Okay. So, when left. So here's A. When he wasn't looking, I'd leave the coins I'd managed to collect on the counter before I left. Well, that doesn't really seem to be about the book. He's paying for it. I don't know. That just seems like a random fact. Doesn't really explain why the book is good. So, okay. 48 to 49. Here we go. B. It was an old volume, read and experienced to the full. Okay. I don't know why that might answer the question. I don't know why the narrator might think that an old volume is a good volume, but it could be it. So, okay, let's just write that down. Old, experienced is what it says. So let's keep that in. It's about the book, so that's good enough for now. 52 to 55. I was aware that St. Pierre knew a few authors who frequented his establishment, and judging by the care with which he handled the volume, I thought perhaps this Mr. Dickens was one of them. Okay, maybe, I guess, he likes the book because it's from someone who visited the shop, but it's saying that he thought that, but, I mean, Dickens is an old author. This doesn't make a lot of sense. To me, this is one that I could definitely cross out. The best I can come up with is that it's a good book because the bookseller might know the author, but hopefully we just kind of know that that's not true. We could read a little bit more, but Dickens is long dead. He's 200 years old, so that doesn't make any sense. D, 66 to 68. Down here. Soon I was convinced that I didn't want to do anything else in life but to learn to do what Mr. Dickens had done. Okay, so why is the book good? Gave him a goal, I guess. Right? The book is good because Dickens made him want to be a writer, I guess. So let's look at our choices. So why is the book good? Reading the book convinced him that he wanted to be a writer. Wow, that's literally what I just said. Okay, so that's probably it. That's not random that I just came up with that. So I would say, okay, that's probably pretty good. Let's make sure, right? Because it could just be that I have a really wrong instinct about what's happening and I'm falling for some sort of trap. But let's look. Let's look at B. He'd only ever been given sweets and snacks as gifts in the past. No, it doesn't say anything about that. He'd only ever been given sweets and snacks? No, that's way too specific. The gift meant that St. Pierre held him in high regard. Well, that's a logical answer. It's probably true that if he gave him a gift, he thought good things about the narrator, but it doesn't say that. Remember, the 2 line references that we have were about the book and about why the book was important. It's not saying that, St. Pierre felt a certain way. None of the line references were about him. So this just doesn't... This might be true, but it's not in our line reference. And with evidence pairs, we need to make sure all the parts of this line up, right? The question in 5 has to be answered by the choices in 5 and then supported by the choices in 6. So everything kind of needs to fall into place. This is an answer to number 5, but it can't be the answer because it doesn't have any evidence to support it. D, St. Pierre was a friend of the book's author. Well, okay, there's a trap. So this matches with the one we crossed out. This matches with C. And we might need to go back. Like, here's the thing, is I knew that Dickens is long dead, and that just doesn't make any sense. Maybe you wouldn't know that. Maybe that's breaking the rules of the SAT, and we're bringing in information that we're not supposed to have. Okay, so I maybe broke a rule. I used outside information instead of what's in the passage. So if you were in that position, where you weren't aware of who Dickens was, you might need to get a little extra context here. And normally we only stick to the lines that we're told to read for these evidence pairs, but we can always read more. It's the best part of the no reading strategy. If you need to read more, you can. So in this case, what would we read? If it says, okay, a friend of yours, a lifelong friend from now on, he's your friend too. That afternoon I took my new friend home, blah, blah, blah. It was an old book, I guess. Yeah. It doesn't really say that, I guess. I get why people would pick this. Okay, so it looks like you kind of do need this information that Dickens is long dead. I don't really see it anywhere here that it just comes out and says, no, he's not my friend. But this is something that happens on usually one question on the literature SAT passage. Because they are characters who are supposed to be real humans, they think and talk like real humans. They joke. They're sarcastic. They lie. In this case, he's kind of being metaphorical. He's not saying he's literally friends with Dickens. He's implying that he's read Dickens a lot and knows the author well through his works. That is not what it literally says, but that is what is strongly implied. And remember, we have in this question the word inferred, so we're supposed to be able to kind of like take some secondary meaning away from these lines. If you picked that, what was that, D and C, I understand the frustration. But luckily, that kind of thing only happens about once per SAT, so it's not a big deal. But it does happen like at least once in most literature passages because they can get away with it because of things like symbolism and sarcasm and things like that. So just be on the lookout for it. Hopefully, though, you've heard of Charles Dickens, you know he's dead, and you can just answer this question based on what I think is a very obvious and common fact about Charles Dickens. He's dead. Therefore, he cannot be friends with the bookseller. There you go.